everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Breakout room 2.
Yeah.
All right.
Hard to get to, but thank you for coming.
Thanks for coming all the way around the side of the escalators. We're so glad you guys came. I'm Natalie, this is Dio. As you probably noticed from the title of this talk is a little bit different from the rest of the sessions. We wanted to do something a little lighthearted, a little funny, and there'll be plenty of opportunities for the deeper technical talks. And so we're going to get a little bit philosophical, a little bit pensive, and we're also going to laugh because we have some movie clips that we're very excited to show you. So we're going to look at some of the ways that VR, AR, and MR have been represented in literature, film, and television. So let's have some fun. Oh, I should tell you, I'm Natalie Grant. I'm the Senior Product Marketer for VR, AR, and Film.
And I'm Gonzalez, Lead Principal Engineer at Unity Labs.
Okay, so we're going to start with a video. And as we were kind of running through our lines last night, I literally was saying like virtual reality for like the whole night.
Stay with you. Yeah.
Stays with you. Okay, so we're going to back up for a second and talk first about pop culture. By the way, does anyone know where this screenshot is from? There we go. Oh, awesome. There you go. It's one of Dio's favorites. Okay, so it's easy to dismiss pop culture or parts of it as meaningless, especially when we're all heads down making serious, impactful innovation. But the truth is, pop culture is culture. And if VR is going to be a part of that culture, how VR comes out in pop culture is a key part of that, whether we like it or not. Because mainstream society is probably learning about all this stuff through the film and television and books that they read. And that's going to be our audience at some point. So NPR's pop culture blogger, her name is Linda Holmes, she says that studying pop culture has an important social function because what we pay attention to in pop culture is how we say what is important to us. And she also talks about how, put this quote up here, that these things affect the way that we think, whether they should or not. So today when we go through these examples, and we're just going to emphasize, we've only picked out a few examples, and I know you guys all probably have your favorites, but we're going to look at 3 things. We're going to call them clues. So the first is how VR or AR is presented in the TV series or the movie or the book. The second is what purpose does it play in the narrative? Is it a tool to get something done? Is it a symbol of the dystopia or something different? And the third is the tone. As you can see, sometimes it's lighthearted and funny. Other times it's incredibly creepy, and we'll get to that in a moment. But now I'm going to hand it off to Dio to start with Star Trek.
Okay, starting chronologically, the holodeck. I'm sure that everybody here knows what the holodeck is, right? So even though these images that we're showing here are from the next generation, the first time that it was mentioned in the series was in 1974, in the animated series of Star Trek. So it's not a head-based, it's not an HMD system, it's completely wireless, and the users, as you know, don't go in it with any headset, and so it's projection-based. The purpose of it, even though this is a quite early example of virtual reality in pop culture, the use is actually quite therapeutic, very, very good, right? They use it for when people want to travel to their hometown and they miss it, they cannot go in the ship, right? They use it sometimes for simulating, even for in some episodes to investigate ethical questions. So the tone here is more curious, inquisitive, scientific, as you know, so quite positive, even though sometimes there's a little bit of danger, right? As you know, there are a few episodes where the characters can get conscious, and so they become dangerous. And other ones, it's mentioned that the computer running the holodeck can also gain consciousness and become a little dangerous. So that's a little bit there of warning. So some of you may or may not be familiarized with the Cave Automatic Virtual Environment. This is a virtual reality platform that already exists. It was invented in the early 90s. And those of us that work there, we call it the holodeck. That's why I used to say, like, I programmed in the holodeck. These are a projection-based system. The photo that you see on your left, it's from Los Alamos National Lab. Caves are not HMD systems. You just go there. There are projectors either in front or behind. You just need your glasses and your tracker. And on the other side, you see a picture of a project that I worked with the Army Research Lab, where we had an omnidirectional treadmill in the middle of the cave. And that allows us to walk around in absolutely any direction, just like the holodeck. Star Wars, of course, we all know Star Wars, the use of augmented reality there for holograms. So the way that it's used is for holograms, as you can see. They use it for meetings, for play, for seeing status, plans of the ships, as the Death Stars, etc. So the purpose in this case is to communicate. It's a tool. It's to have a discussion. The tone is quite neutral. The AR, the technology is just part of life. It's just normal and everybody uses them, although there's a little bit of dark tones there because we know that the dark side wants to control the technology while the good guys are hiding in the forest. Snow Crash? Has anybody read Snow Crash?
Ah, there we go.
Awesome. So I don't need to explain
We got a Snow Crash fan in the front row. Awesome.
Yeah, and Diamond Age, of course, too, like, very, very important novels by Neil Stephenson. So this is the one that coined the term the metaverse in 1992. And so this is a quote there from the type of virtual reality that they use there is with goggles and then projected into their eyes. And that's where they go. So they also use booths where people can go and they can be more or less expensive. So the purpose here is very clear that this is the very, very future of internet where everybody go and websites. They conduct meetings. The mafia meets there, as you know. There are games, etc. So it's not just playing, but it's just part of life. The tone is quite ominous, right, in those novels. There's a dystopian future, very dark, this virus, the Snow Crash virus, can mess up your brain, even if you take it in physical reality, right, or in the metaverse.
And the word avatar had existed before this, but this really was the book that popularized that term.
VR troopers, of course, that we saw, super cute. The interesting part about the VR troopers is even though it's a lighthearted, young kids, young adults series, the idea is that virtual reality is almost this parallel dimension and it's dangerous. All the bad guys, well, Professor Hart apparently also lives there, the good guys. But the whole tone, the idea is that the bad guys live in the virtual reality. And it's the job of the VR troopers to protect our physical reality, to protect that middle, they define that there's a middle dimension, their middle zone, where they fight the bad guys. So even though it's a TV series nice for young kids, there's still this tone that is dark. And in this case, virtual reality is not part of everybody's life. It's more like a tool for either world domination or defending the world. Johnny Mnemonic, of course, that many people here know from 1995. I just put that quote there that I found it like hilarious. So when after he gets into, he builds the whole VR system. It's wired. It's a headset and haptic gloves. And he starts like, bloop, 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 bloop. And so the lady asks him, like, what are you doing? And his first answer is, I'm making a long distance phone call. So I found that maybe a little short coming, like the vision, but it's clearly the next step of internet. So the main uses that in the movie for the VR system is for querying data. He looks at the logs of the faxes. Then, of course, he does some cracking. He hacks himself, etc. But clearly the tone in this movie is a very dystopian, again, very dystopian, dark future where there's even this disease that was caused by too much information and too much exposure to technology. So it's not seen in a positive context.
Cool, okay, and we're also trying to do this in chronological order, so you can probably also see the fun evolution of the headsets that are being worn. So we're gonna do another video here for VR5. Raise your hand if you watched VR5 at any point. It's brand new to everybody? Awesome.
Watch the hands. Oh, sneezes. Sorry, I cannot help this.
Hello?
I love that one. And just a quick note, all of those episodes are available on YouTube. There were only 13 of them, so if you're looking to kill some time, I highly recommend it. It's pretty great. Okay. So as I mentioned, 1995 science fiction television series, 13 episodes. It's a little bit creepy and weird and awkward, and it downward spirals very quickly because VR is actually a supernatural tool in that when she goes into VR, she can see people's thoughts, and she investigates murders, and she basically like replaces people's memories. So you can kind of tell how, 22 years ago, it was like, oh, this new technology, and maybe it also lets us do magical things because it's so hard to understand. So you can see that, that one there. And then Existence. You raise your hand if you've seen this movie.
Oh, nice.
Okay, wait, keep your hand up. Okay, now keep your hand up if you like this movie.
Oh, nice.
Okay. I just wanted to take a quick poll there. This actually has a 71% on Rotten Tomatoes. I can't figure out why personally, but that's a story for another day. So it's David Cronenberg, very stylized, very interesting. It's also super creepy, super weird, very gory.
Intentionally, right?
Intentionally,
So intentionally
and very
gory.
disturbing. But what's interesting about VR in Existence is that it's all gaming focused. So this is a future where game designers are celebrities. And the biggest one of all, that's Allegra on the right, she has designed this game called Existence, and your virtual reality device is like a pod, like the size of like a bladder that you sit on your lap, and then you have like an umbilical cord and you plug it into your spine. And yeah, that reaction, that's how I felt when I was watching this one.
But then they get a nanopod, right? They get a small one.
Other things happen in this movie, but either way, I encourage you to watch it, make up your own mind. But we do have a fun clip from this movie as well. Good old Juba.
Existence is paused!
That's them in the game. And this is them waking up.
I did.
So how does it feel?
What?
Your real life. The one you came back for.
It feels completely unreal.
You're stuck now, aren't you? You want to go back to the Chinese restaurant. There's nothing happening here. We're safe. It's boring.
It's worse than that.
Perfect, okay. It gets a little intense, so I wanted to cut that short. But you can see that he says, real life now feels totally unreal. And that's kind of the through line of this film. So there's a lot of thematic concern over the inability to tell the difference. And I'm gonna try not to spoil anything, but towards the end, it's very confusing, and they start losing track of whether they're in the game or whether they're not in the game. There's also a realist uprising, which is like this underground resistance, which is against the idea of anything that's not reality, and they try to run around and assassinate people. But there's one quote in particular that I wanna draw your attention to, and that's this one on the top right. Don't you think you should have to suffer for all the harm you've done and intend to do to the human race? Don't you think the world's greatest game artist ought to be punished for the most effective deforming of reality? So kind of no more needs to be said on this one. This is kind of the movie's statement about VR. And then, on a slightly lighter note, Minority Report, which I'm assuming most of us in the audience have seen. This is a great film by Steven Spielberg from around 15 years ago. It's loosely based on a great short story by Philip K. Dick. And there are a couple different examples of XR in this film. So really briefly, we see AR used in retail. They walk into the Gap, and the kiosk that greets him personally and saying, "How did you like those jeans you bought last time, Mr. Such and Such?" We also have the famous police console that he uses to solve crimes, as well as the actual VR arcade where he goes underground to do a data pull. And the owner of the arcade says, "It's a big rush, but you come out without a heart attack." There's a little still there. Quick shout out to Iron Man, everyone's favorite AR interface there. AR here being used as an industrial tool, a personal kind of tinkering platform, and its purpose is to really paint its protagonist as sort of like a Batman-esque, Batcave, smart, genius, innovative billionaire type. And then I'm also gonna do a quick shout out to Sunshine, one of my favorite movies by Danny Boyle. Sunshine has a holodeck in it. It's called the Earth Room. And it's used for therapeutic purposes. So when the astronauts who are stuck on this spaceship start losing it, the psychiatrist actually recommends that they spend 3.5 hours in the Earth Room or 5 hours in the Earth Room. And so you can see Chris Evans there, and he's in a forest, or they go to the waves or something, and it's actually used as a way for them to stay sane, which is really awesome. And then lastly, I know everyone knew this one was coming. How many of you guys have read Ready Player One? Awesome. For those of you who haven't, make sure you read it before the movie comes out because there are big spoilers. Okay, so the themes and motifs in this one, obviously it's a dystopia, several decades in the future. We've run out of oil, and so VR is a form of escape, but it's also a way for them to go get educated. They do schools in VR, they socialize in VR, and there's also crime within both worlds for this one as well, with all the other things that come along with games and avatars and play. And this was a still that was leaked from the movie set. I just thought I'd put it here because why not? And you can see the headset there. We're excited. All right, back to you, Dio.
All right, we have about 11 minutes left. So I'm going to run through quickly some cartoons and comedies. So South Park, these episodes were awesome. Very interesting here that what we see now, of course, they present is everybody familiarized, by the way, with the South Park episode? So it starts, well, let me just quickly summarize. So the idea is that Butters starts first, Butters is the blonde kid with a fake Oculus headset, and he thinks that he's in VR, and it's a prank that Cartman is running for him. So we start laughing at that stupid, thinking that you're in VR. But then it turns out that Cartman, on the other side, he's actually still in VR in a comatose state, the whole time thinking that he was running pranks. So the episode is about that. So even though they portrayed still a dark, dangerous of technology and the danger of being absorbed by it to the point that you don't know what reality is, it's actually very funny. It's definitely the tone very different from this dystopian, anarchic state. It's actually now making fun of it that the technology is here. So yes, so this is just a quote from the episode. You forgot your neurons would be torn apart. You also forget that if you died in VR, you also died in real life. So Futurama presents virtual reality in many episodes. They have the net suits. And one funny thing is Amy playing there a virtual skee ball. They show a real skee ball, then a virtual skee ball, a guy with a headset running, and then she's playing virtual skee ball. And she said, I swear I was playing virtual skee ball. Community, oh my God, I love this one. And so, did I put there? Yeah, and Jesus wept. So this is, they get a virtual reality system with omnidirectional treadmill, and the dean, of course, gets absorbed there, and so every time he sees something, it's like, and Jesus wept. So, and The Simpsons has an episode where Mr. Burns, again, his psychiatrist recommends to get a family, spend a family, so they create a virtual family for him. And also, end of last year, they partnered with Google to create the couch sequence for Google Cardboard. These are examples, I believe that's the last one. These are the examples of lighthearted comedy shows that it's still they present the dangers, but very poking fun at it. Now The Expanse is, are you familiar with The Expanse? show of hands? Is
people?
everything?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, some of you. So this is one of my favorite new series, started in 2015. And let me show you the clip.
Look, we're gonna launch the Nauvoo from here, okay? We're gonna shoot her like a bullet toward Eros, picking up speed. Fred's geeks crunched all the numbers, velocity, speed, angle, all that crap. So when she hits, Eros is on her merry way. We're gonna detonate the bombs after.
All right. In the interest of time, I won't show you the whole thing. So in The Expanse, what I find that interesting here is augmented reality is part of everybody's life. This is a cop explaining, doing actually a physical simulation of something they're planning. And look at it. It's not glass-based. It's not HMD-based. It's actually projection-based. And there are other scenes where even politicians use augmented reality. So I love that it's opposite in the sense of Minority Report, in the sense that here it's kind of implied that this guy is not very well educated, hasn't traveled much, but look, he's a techie, and everybody there is a techie. So that one is very interesting. And so the technology in this case is portrayed as everybody has access to it.
Okay, and we did have a clip from this, but I'm not going to play it, but that's kind of the most important part anyway that we're looking at. So do you guys watch Silicon Valley? Ooh, I expect a little bit more.
I admit, I don't watch it. I'm one of those that it's too real for me, so I don't watch it.
Pretty funny. Yeah, it is very real for some of us. A little too close to home, maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they've just announced that in the next season, they're going to have VR in it. And so that's the little teaser we get from the trailer with the famous quote, "The VR is rad now," which who can argue with that? Black Mirror, do we have any fans in here?
Yeah.
Awesome, there we go, okay. So I'm gonna go a little quickly here, but there are 2 episodes I wanted to call out. The first is Playtest. Both of these are very creepy, but in this one, a lot of the themes are around fear and the AI reacting to your fears and taking you deeper into virtual reality. Again, with not being able to tell whether or not you've really left it, lots of like ahas and where am I, and a lot of trust and overconfidence that's coming in there with a little fun. Say that again? Yeah, exactly. And then the second episode I wanted to call out is San Junipero from Black Mirror as well. So on the bottom there is how they enter into the world. It's a little chip on your temple. And I'm not going to spoil anything about this episode. It's fantastic. You got to see it. But the themes are about time and longevity and commitment and using technology to fulfill some of those things that you want to do. So we only picked a couple examples. We tried to get as many in as possible. Obviously, I'm sure you guys have your favorites. We threw a couple more on these slides. Overall, the reason that we wanted to do this talk, other than the fact that it is quite amusing to turn back 20 or 25 years and see how VR and AR were represented over time.
The VR.
The VR, virtual reality. But really, we wanted to call it a couple things. So you probably noticed, other than the South Parks, the Futuramas, and the Silicon Valleys, that there were a couple themes that went through most of these movies and books, and even some of the TV shows. So the first one is not being able, bless you, not being able to know what is real. So obviously that's a fear that a lot of people have. Actually, my Lyft driver on the way from LAX to this hotel told me that when I told him where I was going. He was like, oh, but then you're not going to be able to tell. And I'm like, where does this thing come from? Oh, it comes from pop culture, of course. The second one is technology as both a way to escape and have fun, but also kind of making your own prison. The third is that we often see crime being taken place in both places. Sometimes they're related, and sometimes it's just a way to solve one for the other. And then lastly, it's unpredictable. It downward spirals. Part of that is just because of our natural 3-act structure and our plot and our tension and our climax, but also it's just a new technology that can be sometimes scary. So we want to leave you with this. Pop culture is culture, and our collective consciousness matters. And all of us in this room know that our industry is going to be super successful, and we're super stoked, and we're super bought in. But remember that our collective understanding needs to evolve in order for us all to be successful and for people to understand all of the rad things that VR and AR can bring. Technology can be scary, as I'm sure anyone who's helped their grandparents with their Wi-Fi knows. It can be very overwhelming and very stressful if you don't understand it. And change can be scary. The way that we change how we communicate, how we learn, how we get information, how we entertain ourselves, and how we need to upgrade the way that we normally do things to a new way that's potentially unpredictable. So appreciate where your audience might be coming from, be patient with them, and remember that the reference points that they may have, I get Minority Report a lot, but you probably also get others. So these reference points can be hard to unlearn. And the last thing is, old VR is funny. So take a look back, watch some of these shows if you want to be amused, and remember that one day all of the VR that we're working on right now will probably be funny too.
It's hilarious, yeah.
So share your deep thoughts online. You can tell us what your favorite flick is at this hashtag. And we do have 3.5 minutes left. If anyone wants to share a deep thought at the mic, you're welcome to come up and do so. Otherwise, come say hi, and thank you for coming.
Or also join, I'm moderating a panel on augmented reality after this, so you can also join us there.
It's going to be great. There's some awesome folks on that panel. So thanks, guys.
Thank you.